Welcome back. The International Committee of the Red Cross in the Democratic Republic of Congo is calling for urgent humanitarian assistance in the Kasai region. Increased violence there has sparked fears of wider conflict within the country, with more than 1.3 million people displaced and 7.7 million in urgent need of food.
The humanitarian situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to deteriorate from escalating violence in Kasai and Tanganyika regions, with 7 million people in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, of the 7 million people in need, 4 million are displaced after fleeing for their lives, leaving everything behind. Director of Operations for ICRC Africa, Patricia Danzi, recently visited villages in Kasai province, many of which had been abandoned, looted, burnt, and its residents forced to flee. They live in extremely tough conditions with no access to health care, food, or shelter.
Her small daughter, she was born in the forest, so it was very, very difficult for them. No health care, very little food. So now they're back, and we're trying to bring to them some support, material support, but also moral support.
Violence and instability in Kasai began in mid-2016 after a traditional leader belonging to a rebel group was killed in fighting with security forces. There was also national uproar when President Joseph Kabila decided to stay in power beyond the end of his mandate.
A very sad scene when you see all the houses destroyed, no one left, and you can only hope that the majority of the people were unharmed, but this is unfortunately not the case. So many people also died, either during the fighting or then later during the difficult displacement in the forest.
As part of its humanitarian operations, the ICRC, in partnership with the Congolese Red Cross, has assisted more than 352,000 displaced persons or residents in this year. Analysts fear growing fighting could spark a repeat of the conflict seen between 1996 and 2003, mostly in the east of Congo, in which millions died, mainly from hunger and disease.
And in the Central African Republic, militia violence has intensified in the southeast, prompting fears of a possible return to chaos seen in the country at the peak of a 2013 civil war. The UN Secretary-General's Special Advisor, Adama Dieng, was on an official visit to the country, urging for peace amongst the communities, calling for the perpetrators to face justice.
Special Advisor to the UN Secretary-General, Adama Dieng, says he is very sorry to see escalating violence in Central African Republic. Dieng, who advises the UN chief on prevention of genocide, was on a 6-day visit to the country where a surge in militia fighting in several hotspots since May has driven the number of people displaced to over 1.1 million.
I must say that in Bria, I was very sorry to see a city cut in two, to see on one hand the Christian populations and on the other hand Muslim populations, a civilian population who in both camps experienced victims. And my wish is to see these people gather together.
Conflict broke out in the country after mainly Muslim Seleka rebels ousted President Francois Bozize in 2013, provoking a backlash from Christian anti-Balaka militias. Although unrest subsided, fighting has spiked this year. The UN has warned that ethnic fighting could descend again into a much larger conflict if combatants are not disarmed. Dieng is calling for the perpetrators of violence to face justice.
What is needed now, more than ever, is for people to know that if these crimes continue, the perpetrators of these crimes, the sponsors, those who have the means to stop them and who do not, will one day face justice because the rule of impunity is over.
Dieng's goal, according to the UN, is to explore ways of reducing inter-community tensions and ensuring the protection of civilian populations.
And to take a look at the humanitarian crisis of the DRC and perhaps the Central African Republic, Olatunji Lanre Barua, a human rights activist, joins us from Abuja studios. Welcome to the program. How much activism can help over 1.3 million people who have been displaced, with lots more dying of hunger and disease?
Thank you for having me. When you talk about DRC Congo and the humanitarian crisis that the country has had to endure for some years now, and especially the last few months, it's going to be very difficult to get local intervention to solve the problem. It will require a lot of people coming from outside. It will require multinational bodies. It will require international NGOs intervening. If you notice that in 2016, the DRC Congo actually had more displacement figures than even Nigeria. They had the highest displacement figure globally in Africa, and then that escaped under the radar. A lot of people did not flag the country as a particular, even when Nigeria was being flagged as an humanitarian case study, when Syria and Yemen were being flashed, DRC Congo was never on the radar, and it's particularly worrisome. Right now, the country does not have the capacity to deal with the crisis. At some point, they had up to 6.5 million people in displacement. And if you look at the cluster of crises in different regions, and there's a likelihood that this crisis is going to spiral out of control with the emerging political trend in the country at the moment.
So essentially, why do you think that, the situation there continues to receive little international attention?
Okay, sorry, can you take that again?
I was asking, why do you think that it continues to receive little international attention, the humanitarian crisis in the DRC?
It's disturbing. I really cannot place my hand on any particular thing, but I think you also have to look at the roles that are being played by the government. The incumbent government in DRC Congo are being more focused on, remaining in power. If you Joseph Kabila's son, who's the incumbent president, his tenure was supposed to elapse last December. And, after some initial crisis that broke out, he negotiated with the opposition and then to have a transition period of 1 year. And right now, the emerging trend is that there will not be any election. And so when you look at a government that is focused on, remaining in office, a lot of things has, glossed under the radar. A lot of issues that plague the country are not being, paid attention to. And because everybody focused on the transition problems, 20 students were killed in 2015 in January by the same government, and they've been obsessed about this transition thing. And it takes all their attention and focus away from the raging crisis. And most of the people in the sub-region, the sub-regional government, has also not, showed interest in what is happening in the DRC Congo. I think this has to change if we want to save the people from running from villages to villages, if we want to save the people from crossing over continuously into Angola. And this has to change. The regional body, the African Union, also has to intervene right now. It is a big basket case.
If you can, because it's the final question, in a sentence, tell us what your thoughts are, because there appears to be a flurry over the new election delay until April 2019. Do you think this will lead to another spate of violence?
It will take, right now, the only way this can be solved is for multilateral collaboration. It's going to take the African Union. It will take the United Nations if they are interested in ensuring that the crisis does not break out in the Congo, because the opposition coalition are threatening that they will have the election this December. They will stick to the December agreement, the December 2016 agreement. And the electoral body is saying that they would not be able to hold the election until mid-2018. And so people are threatening, civil society are threatening, there are militia groups springing up in the ex-Katanga region, in the Kasai province. So you have all this. If you don't bring different countries together, the African Union together, have a multilateral agreement and negotiate and decide on the way forward right now, it is going to spiral out of control.
All right, thank you so much. We've been speaking to Olatunji Lanre-Barrow, a human rights activist who's at our Abuja studios. And that ends it on Network Africa at this time. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker.